All right, so thank you for tuning in to Chomp at the Bit. My name is Kyle Edwards, of course. We are here. It's finally that moment since the Celtics won Game 7 against the Heat on Sunday. We've been waiting for this day. The NBA Finals are here. Game 1 out in San Francisco at the Chase Center? I think that's where the Warriors play now. So Celtics Warriors Game 1. So obviously, I got to go ahead, give you a little preview of the matchup, give you the ins and outs of both these teams. Then by the end of the episode, I'll give you my prediction. Just to let you know, I've actually done pretty well picking winners of each series. I'm 13-1. Only loss was the Phoenix Mavericks series, which I think most people were kind of shocked by that. But yeah, so let's go ahead, get into this. Hopefully it won't be, with you too long, because I know you're anxious to get going on, Game 1, see what happens, and see if we can learn anything for the rest of the series. So let's go ahead, jump into that right now. All right, so looking at this matchup, we have two teams where coaching-wise, really good. Steve Kerr, we know how he is. He's been Golden State for a while now. He came in after Mark Jackson. He's gotten them over the hump a couple of times, and he obviously seems like he has the attention, or whatever you want to call it, of the team. So we know who he is. Some of you may not know Ime Udoka, who's the coach of the Celtics. He's coming in after being an assistant because of Philly, Brooklyn. Then he gets this job. It wasn't the smoothest start for him, which is understandable because you're going from Brad Stevens to Udoka. It took the players some time to get used to him and his system, his voice, all that. Struggled for about a good part of the first couple of months of the season, but since first week of January, they were basically the best team in basketball, and it's carried over into the playoffs, where they went through a tough road with Brooklyn with the sweep, Milwaukee in 7, then just finished off Miami in 7. So now, here we are. Celtics Warriors, which I think, based off of the 4 teams that were in the conference finals, this is probably the best matchup that we could have gotten. And for that reason, I fully expect this series to be really entertaining. We've got big names on both sides. You have Steph Curry, Klay Thompson, Draymond Green. With the Warriors, Celtics, you have Jaylen Brown, Jason Tatum, Marcus Smart, who's, Defensive Player of the Year. This is a matchup of, I think, league's best offense in Golden State versus the league's best defense with the Celtics. Two teams that are kind of interchangeable with their players on the floor, so you'll probably see a lot of switching between both teams. And then because of that, there may be some lulls in the offense in this series, but I do think, for the Celtics perspective, yes, it's another tough challenge for them, but I do think it's a bit of a different challenge from what they experienced with the Bucks and the Heat, because the Heat, we know, are one of those that like to kind of muddy up your offensive flow with some physicality across their lineup. Not to say that Golden State doesn't have physicality. You have Draymond Green out there. You've got Wiggins, who can be somewhat physical defensively. But I think this series you'll see more free-flowing movement. And I think you'll actually get an actual flow to these games. So I'm definitely excited to see it. Hopefully you are. And I think the biggest thing with both teams will be health. Because for the Celtics, we know that Marcus Smart is dealing with, you name it, he's probably hurting. Because we know about the ankle, I think the groin, among some other things. Rob Williams dealing with the knee issue from coming back from the surgery. And we know what kind of impact he has, not only defensively, where most people recognize what he can do, but offensively. He is an important part of what they like to do, because with him setting screens for Smart, Brown, Tatum, whoever's the ball handler at that point, Golden State's going to have to worry about him as a lob threat. So because of that, that creates openings for whoever on the wing or the ball handler to possibly get a lane to the hoop. Because you can't just, blitz the ball handler and leave Rob Williams roaming free in the middle, because, he can get up there. Now, with the knee injury, it's a question of how many effective minutes he can give the Celtics. Because we've seen him play in a few games this playoff season, but he hasn't really been able to finish a lot of games. So that's something we're going to have to watch going forward. I do believe, according to the injury report, he's available to play, which, game one of the finals, I'm sure he would love to be out there. So let's see if he can get, I think for the Celtics case, if they can get 20 good minutes out of Rob Williams, that's a plus. Because, you have Al Horford, who's turned back the clock and has played really well in these playoffs. And you also have Grant Williams, who's kind of had a little bit of an up and down playoff so far. But I do think with a Golden State matchup for him, we may see more of the early Grant Williams in this one. Because I think what kind of took away from his offensive ability was, having to guard Giannis, taking those hard hits. And then with Miami, he was dealing with, Butler and Tucker and guys like that. So I fully expect Grant Williams to perform better this series than he did against the Heat. But then with Golden State, you have Gary Payton. I think he's junior. I don't think he's the third. So Gary Payton Jr. You have Otto Porter, who was hobbled in the Mavericks series. I think I saw that those two guys will actually be available. So for the most part, at least before game one gets underway, it looks like both teams are fully healthy, ready to go. And that's what you really want to see at this point. You want to see the best of both teams in a final situation to see who can come out on top. And I think that was the injury so far. Okay, so then the next thing you're going to look for is what I kind of said at the top, where best offense, Warriors, best defense, Celtics. So when the Warriors have the ball, we know that Marcus Smart's going to be the point of attack when Steph Curry has the ball. So now where the chess match comes in is if they run pick and roll, do the Celtics, run Smart under the screen? Do they switch? If they do, who's it going to be? Most likely it's going to probably be a big, because you can see Draymond Green setting that screen. And this is where I think if Rob Williams is 100% ready to go, where you'll see his biggest impact, because Rob Williams has the athleticism to block perimeter shots, and he doesn't have to be right up on the guard. So if he gives Curry or Poole or even Thompson room to operate as they see it, Rob Williams, fully healthy Rob Williams, is able to close that space quickly and get a fingertip on the ball. And that can be frustrating for a perimeter player. Now conversely, if it's Al Horford, Horford will most likely close the space a little more. and then we'll see if Poole, Curry try to drive past Horford, and then who's going to be that secondary defender to help out. The other way, the Celtics have a really good offense when they're careful with the ball. So that's going to be a big thing for them, because if they can protect the ball, limit their turnovers, I think there's going to be opportunities offensively to use their size and athleticism against a Warriors team that, yes, they play good defense, but they're not the biggest team. And Tatum, Brown, you could even throw in Derek White, Marcus Smart, they all have the ability to get to the rim and finish at the rim. And with Golden State not necessarily having your traditional rim protector, I do think that's a way that they could, force Curry, play defense, like with Smart going to the hoop. You maybe look to get Draymond Green in foul trouble getting to the rim. And then if that all is clogged up, kick it out to guys like Peyton Pritchard, Grant Williams in the corner, or Tatum's driving, he kicks it out to Brown, Brown driving, kick it out to Tatum. So I do think you're going to see a wonderful chess match between both of these teams to try to limit each other's biggest advantage. Now for Golden State, I would say Golden State's probably the deeper team, because we've seen Udoka basically run 7-8 guys for the Celtics, and I think there could be some concern whether or not the amount of games that they played this season, I think they played over 100 games so far, will there be moments where maybe some guys don't have legs on a jump shot or something? Now, I think the adrenaline of the finals will be enough to carry them through, but the deeper you go into the playoffs, the odds of that happening, I guess, does get a little bit higher. So is it something where, for the sheer reason that Golden State is a little bit deeper off the bench, are they able to take advantage of possibly some tired legs defensively with the Celtics? Of course, one thing you have to watch for is with the turnovers, like I said, with the Celtics, by keeping them low, you keep Golden State out of transition, because the last thing you need is, Draymond Green getting easy layups at the rim, or, him bringing the ball on a little fast break and turning around, kicking out to a trailing Curry, Poole, Thompson for a three. Especially in these first two games in San Francisco, because that's just going to get the crowd more and more into it. Now, we have seen the Celtics have no problem winning on the road in tough environments. We saw it. Brooklyn was not exactly the toughest environment, but they still won on the road there. They won on the road against the Bucks. That's a tough place to win. And then they won, 3 games in Miami. Another pretty tough place to win, so they shouldn't be fazed by the Warriors crowd, but that's a building that can get loud. Like I said, if Tatum and Brown take care of the ball, we could see both of them have really big games in this series, because I'm assuming Wiggins will cover one. But, that's where Otto Porter being healthy helps, because that gives you another long wing defender to throw at them. But, and also Gary Payton as well factors into that rotation. So that's why those two guys are so important for them. But if the Celtics play the way that they played after the first week of January, when they were really going and blowing out teams and stuff, I think they can make this a very interesting series. Now, Golden State comes into this one as a favorite. I don't think they're like an overwhelming favorite, but they are a favorite. And with that, also, kind of this backstory to this series is, if the Warriors were to pull this one out, Steph Curry gets his 4th ring. I think the Warriors would pass the Bulls in terms of championships won for the organization. And you'll hear a lot about what a win can do for Steph Curry's legacy. It's a very interesting backstory to this whole thing, as well as what a title would do for Tatum and Brown. They're a pair that's kind of been polarizing in a way, because when they're going well, people see how dominant they can be. But when a team's losing, there's a lot of questions about whether the two of them can coexist. Now, that has to be out of the window at this point, because the two of them finally got over the hump of the Eastern Conference Finals and made it to a finals. And because of that, that's something else you want to see. You may have to pay attention to, because the Warriors come into this with 130 games or something of finals experience on their roster, while the Celtics have 0 games. Now, it's one thing to make it through the playoffs, make it through conference finals, but the NBA finals is a whole other animal. So in moments where maybe some inexperience creeps in with the Celtics, Golden State has a crazy amount of experience to draw on. I don't think it's going to be a big factor necessarily, but it could be a factor in certain games, certain like 5-minute junctures in the series or something like that. It's kind of low on my list of things to watch for, but it is something that can creep up at times. Now, because of that, I do think, for the Celtics getting to this point is a win for them. They should be coming into this, I guess the expression, playing with house money, and because of that, they should be as aggressive as they want to be, leave it all out on the floor, and just make it as tough on Golden State as possible. Also with that, I think that puts added pressure on Golden State to get this done, because it will be viewed a certain way for a team with all this experience to lose to a team that is, one, perceived as being not as deep as they are, 2, lacks the experience that they do, both on the court and on the sideline, because Kerr been around, Udoka first time at the head coaching chair, but he's been on benches before. But we know being an assistant coach is different from being a head coach. I guess in terms of it's like I said, yeah, so pressure is on the Warriors, and I don't know, it's just gonna be a really fun series. So I think the X factor for the Warriors will be, I'll go Jordan Poole, because Jordan Poole is going to have to be that third scorer, because we know what Curry can do, we know what Thompson can do, but we've also seen at times during this playoff run where one of those guys might be off one night. And I think whereas some other teams that they played haven't been able to take advantage of that necessarily, I think the Celtics, with their Tatum and Brown connection, are more than capable enough to take advantage of one of those guys being off to win, to steal a game or two. So if Jordan Poole can be the unquestioned number 3 scorer, they'll be fine. And because of that, it will take some pressure off of Wiggins, because I think Wiggins is going to have most of his focus defensively in this series to slow down either Tatum or Brown, and at times interchangeable between the two. An X factor for me for the Celtics, I think it's got to be Rob Williams. And with that is basically health related, because if Rob Williams is healthy enough to play each one of these games, I think he can put his fingerprint on each game, whether it's clearing the boards offensively and defensively, disrupting perimeter plays for the Warriors, lob passes at the rim. He can affect the game in so many ways. Now, if Rob's knee becomes an issue, I guess my backup X factor for the Celtics would be Marcus Smart, because he's going to have to take on the challenge of, covering a Curry or Draymond in a, pick and roll situation. We might even see him on Thompson at times. We'll see him on a variety of players defensively, and then offensively, he's going to have to be tasked with keeping the offense going. When the Celtics get into trouble, a lot of times it's when he's out on the floor and Tatum and Brown are doing the bulk of the ball handling, and then Smart turns into a spot-up shooter, which is not the strength of his game. If Smart can command the ball, get the offense going, he can be masterful in this series. And maybe put some fouls on Curry or Poole or whoever's guarding him. So I guess with the X factors, breaking down the matchups, I think the only thing that's left is the prediction. And you can call me a homer for this, sure, but I'm going to go Celtics in 7. I think this is going to be a long series. I've seen some people pick the Warriors in 5 or something. I think that's crazy. I wouldn't be totally shocked, but I think it's crazy. Same way I wouldn't see the Celtics winning in 5 either. I think this is going to be a back and forth series. I fully expect the Celtics to win a game in San Francisco the same way I expect the Warriors to win a game in Boston. Just trying to think if there's anything else. Yeah, I think I guess MVPs. So, since I'm picking the Celtics to win in 7, I think the MVP is going to be Jason Tatum. Because the Celtics pull us out in 7, I fully expect Tatum to have a couple of 30-point games, a couple of double-double games where he's giving you 28 and 12, and probably averaging 5-6 assists. If he puts up a line of 28, 11, and 6, it'd be hard pressed not to give him the MVP if they win it. And if they win it, I would love that. But yeah, so let's go ahead, I guess, wrap this up. So, like I said, I'm going Celtics in 7. Back and forth series. I think an NBA fan that's not from Boston or San Francisco or a fan of either team will love this series. I think offensively they'll be able to see basketball played in a way that should be appealing to them. Ball movement, player movement, knockdown shooting, get to the rim. There'll be a variety offensively. Defensively, you'll see guys, pulling up the shorts, really getting into it defensively. And yeah, I can't wait for this one. So of course, let me know what you think. You can do that, by following me on Twitter at Chopper Podcast. That way we can interact as well. You can let me know, comment or review wherever you're listening to this. As you know, podcast is available. YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, wherever you listen to podcasts, it's out there. So definitely like, subscribe, share. I would greatly appreciate that. And strap in, get ready. I think it's going to be a great ending to a interesting season. Of course, I'll be here after every game, hopefully, to break them down. But yeah. So as I always say, be safe out there. God bless. I'll catch you next episode. All right. I'm out.